Welcome to today's mathematics lesson, and in our lesson for today we'll be solving quadratic equations. So basically, we know to say a quadratic equation is any equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So meaning a quadratic equation has got the unknown variable with a degree of what? Of 2. So meaning there, when you're having one component, or rather the unknown value, is raised to the power 2, meaning this one qualifies to be a quadratic equation. So now, quadratic equation mostly come in paper 1, where you're told to sometimes factorize and sometimes you're told to solve. So this quadratic equation comes in different forms. As we can see here, we are having the first question here, the second question, the third question, and the last question there. So today we want to see how best we can solve a quadratic equation if it is given in any form as they have brought it. So our first question there is telling us to say, solve 4x squared minus 8x equals 0. So in order for us to solve this equation, the first thing that we're supposed to do is to factorize, because if we look at this equation, we are not having our c there. So we have to see what is common there. So if we look at here and there, the number that is common there is 4. And the letter that is common there is what? X. So what is going to remain there is x minus what is going to remain there is 2. This will be equivalent to what? To 0. So after factorizing like that, we can now say, since these two are multiplying, 4x and what is in the bracket here are multiplying, we are going to say this simply means this is equivalent to 0. Also this one is equivalent to what? To 0, because there is a multiplication here. So we are going to say it's either our 4x equals 0 or our x minus 2 equals what? Equals 0. To solve for this part alone, we know to say here we are going to divide by 4, also there by 4. So meaning our x will be equivalent to 4 into 0, we are going to get 0. So our first value for x there is what? 0. But you can say, or we solve for this part here. We know to say it will be x equals 0. When these two crosses the equal sign becomes positive 2. So meaning our x will be equivalent to 0 plus 2, we are going to get 2. So meaning here we can conclude by saying our x is equivalent to what? 0, or our x is equivalent to what? Positive 2. So basically, this is how we solve for the first question, which is 4x squared minus 8x equals 0. We go to the next question that is saying x plus 2 squared equals 16. So this question as well, we know to say there is an aspect of square there. So meaning the values that you are supposed to find for x, they are supposed to be what? 2. So to solve this equation, we'll go direct and apply the square root on both sides. Why? Because this side, it being a square there, meaning everything in the bracket here is considered to be a perfect square. And also on the other side of the equation, we are having 16, which is also a perfect square number. So in order for us to solve for x there, we are going to apply the square root on both sides of the equation. So we are going to say this is the square root of x plus 2 squared equals the square root of what? 16. So immediately this one and that one will go following the rules of indices. So we are going to remain with x plus 2, which should be equivalent to positive or negative 4, because we know to say the square root of 16 is going to be positive or negative 4. Then now we can split them by saying it's either our x plus 2 is equivalent to positive 4, or our x plus 2 is equivalent to negative 4. Then now we solve them separately, where we are going to say, we start with this part here, our x will be equivalent to 4. When these two crosses the equal sign becomes minus 2. So our x will be equivalent to 4 minus 2, we get 2. So the first value for x there is what? Is 2. But you can also say, or x will be equivalent to negative 4. And then when these two crosses the equal sign, it becomes minus 2. So our x there will be equivalent to negative 4 minus negative 2. We are going to get negative 6. Because you know to say the same signs, you add and maintain the same sign that you are having. So there we can conclude by saying our x will be equivalent to 2, or our x will be equivalent to negative 6. So basically, those are the two values for x in our second equation. If we go to our third equation, which is telling us to say x minus 1, 2x plus 3 equals 0. So if we follow the process of algebra, if we expand this one, when we multiply this one and that one there, we are going to get a square. So meaning the degree of this unknown variable is going to be 2. So this one also qualifies to be a quadratic equation, and therefore, since this one has already been factorized, there is no need for us to expand. We are just going to solve it directly by saying, since we know to say there is multiplication there, we are going to equate this to 0, and also that will be equivalent to what? To 0. So we are going to get x minus 1 equals 0, or 2x plus 3 equals to what? To 0. We begin with this side as always. We are going to say x will be equivalent to, this is 0. When this one crosses the equal sign, becomes positive 1. So meaning our x will be equivalent to 0 plus 1, we get what? 1. Or here we are going to say this is 2x equals, when this 3 crosses the equal sign, becomes minus 3. Then we say divide by 2, even there divide by 2. So this and that will go, our x will be equivalent to negative 3 over 2. So there we can conclude by saying our two values for x are x equals 1, or our x is equivalent to negative 3 upon what? 2. Which, if you want, you can even express as negative 1, remainder 1 upon 2. It is 1 and the same thing. So we go to the last question now, which is the telling us, say, x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. So now, this equation, as we can see, it is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So in this case, we need to find the product, the sum, and the factors. For which we know to say the product is equivalent to a times c. Then the sum is equivalent to b. So if we follow this one here, a times c will give us the product, and then the sum, it will just be our b there, which is going to be the sum. And then for the factors, we need to look for two numbers such that when we multiply them, they give us the product. When we add them, they give us the what? The sum. So from the question we are having, here, let's determine the product and the sum. So the product here, we know to say the coefficient for our x squared there is what? 1, which is our a, and then our c there, it is what? 2. So when we say 1 times 2, we are going to get a positive, which is 2. Then our sum here, we know to say the number that is the coefficient for x in the middle there, it is negative 3. So now the two numbers that we are going to multiply to get negative 2, and then when we add them, we get negative 3. These are going to be negative 1 and negative 2. Because when we say negative 1 times negative 2, we are going to get positive 2. And then when we say negative 1 plus negative 2, we are going to get negative 3. So now, these factors that we've obtained here are the factors now that we are going to replace it with our sum there. So if we do that, we are going to get the equation which is x squared, then minus x minus 2x, then plus 2 equals 0. So meaning this one, the x squared, has dropped the way it is, and then the c, that one, the 2, has dropped. And then in the middle here where we have our sum, which is -3, we've replaced with the what? The factors that we obtained, which is -1 and -2. Then now when we reach there, we can factorize by grouping terms. Process of algebra, grouping terms, we are going to get 2 terms this side and 2 terms that side. So if we look at our 2 terms this side, what is common there is what? X, open bracket. What is going to remain here, it is what? X minus 1. Then now, if we look at our second term here, what is common there is what? -2. What will remain there, it is what? X, negative times positive, we get -1. Then this is equivalent to what? 0. So as we can observe from the question that we are having there, we know to say what is in the first bracket and in the second bracket, they are the same. So as a result, we are just going to pick one of them and say this is x minus 1. Then in the second bracket, we are going to put the factors, the ones that we took outside, the ones that were common. So there we are having x minus what? 2. Because here we have x and then here we have the -2. And then we are going to equate this to what? To 0. So after we reach at this stage, this is the same as this question that we had here, which was x minus 1, then 2x plus 3 equals what? 0. So when you reach there, meaning you are almost done, you simply say x minus 1 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals what? 0. Then you begin with the first part here, where you say x equals 0. When this -1 crosses the equal sign, it becomes plus 1. So meaning our x will be equivalent to 0 plus 1 will get 1. So meaning that is our first value for what? For x. Then we can say, or our x equals 0. When this 2 jumps the equal sign, it is going to become also a positive. So we can say x equals to 0 plus 2, we are going to get what? Positive 2 as our second value. So there we can conclude by saying, therefore, our x will be equivalent to positive 1, or our x will be equivalent to positive 2. So these are our 2 values for x. So basically, this is how we solve different types of quadratic equations.